All right, I'd like to go ahead and call this meeting to order. And I don't believe we've got any visitors in the audience, but we're always here if anybody wants to come and participate in our Board of Adjustments meetings. And first, let's take a look at we've got minutes for February 28th of 2024 to look at.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to accept the minutes from February 28th, 2024, please.
I'll second that.
I was gonna say, I did note, is there any comments? I did notice the heading has Wednesday, January 24th, 2024 at the top.
Yeah.
Minor thing, but I think an easy fix would be to just scratch that. If somebody wants to make a motion to correct that.
I make a motion that we amend the minutes to reflect the minutes of Wednesday, February 28th, 2024, instead of January 24th, 2024.
All right, any discussion? Second?
Second.
All right, with that amendment, motion carries, and minutes are approved. And so this is a public hearing. The Board of Adjustments is a quasi-judicial board, and so if there's any appeals of findings, those motion must be made with the Madison County Circuit Court within 30 days. And we're going to open this up to new business, and it is a public hearing, so all staff, visitors, and any adjacent property owners will have to be sworn in. We've got our corporate counsel here this evening, and so usually we get kicked off by Amanda, and you'll be sworn in and just give a brief overview. That'd be great.
Okay.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do. So I will just start by first saying that our aerials are not working this evening to show you guys, but luckily they brought some paper copies, which I'm not used to having, so I appreciate that. The property that we are discussing this evening is located at 102 Jane Street. Of course, that is for proximity, right, the parcel that is right next to Cracker Barrel. And that property is a commercial restaurant that is under construction currently. It is a B4 zone, and our sign regulations are very specific in what we allow for signage in a B4 zone. That's what we are here to discuss this evening. So you actually have a copy of the sign ordinance. It allows for one interstate sign, maximum of 90 feet tall, and a maximum of 400 square feet in area. So they will be presenting to ask for a variance for that 400 square feet maximum. I will also, just as a reminder to the board, per KRS 100, before any variance is requested, the board must make findings. Those findings, well, let me see if I've lost my notes. I'm sorry. Those findings are essentially that the variance request does not alter public health, safety, and welfare, and that one of these four reasons basically have to be made as the findings. So the requested variance arises from special circumstances which do not generally apply to the land in its general vicinity. Such special circumstances are not the result of actions of the applicant taken subsequent to the adoption of these regulations. The strict application of the provisions would deprive the applicant of a reasonable use of the land or create an unnecessary hardship, or other reasons that the variance will not adversely affect the public health, safety, and welfare, will not alter the essential character, and will not cause a hazard or nuisance to the public. And I'm happy to answer any questions about the property or what we are hearing this evening.
This, looks like this location is really close to the intersection of Brentwood and Street.
Correct.
Guess that's what they're talking about, right around this side.
Correct.
Somebody, present?
Thank you, Mr. Bills, member of the commission. My name is Stuart Oles. I'm a practice over in Richmond, and I represent CB3, the applicant tonight. Martin Carney is here with me. He is one of the members of CB3. This is its application for a sign variance for the property that Amanda's just discussed. The company bought the old motel that was there, has torn it down, currently in the construction of a building there for a Starbucks restaurant. And we'll have another lot adjacent to that. I've given you a plat that shows the two properties. Total frontage of about, didn't have enough for you. Got one. Total frontage of about 240 feet, or about 120 foot of frontage for each lot. Under your ordinance, which I've also circulated, and I apologize, it starts at the very bottom of the page that I've highlighted and goes over to the top of the next page. In that B4 zone, which this property is located in, someone could have 7 square feet of signage for each 120 foot of front, for each foot of frontage, I'm sorry. So in this case, Mr. Carney could have about 840 total square footage of signage, but only one of those signs could be an interstate sign up to 90 feet tall and up to 400 square feet in size. As I indicated, he owns the 2 lots. What he's asking to do tonight is basically put 2 signs on 1 pole, 1 sign for each lot. It will meet all the other requirements, except it'll just be located on one of the lots. It will still meet all the other obligations. It won't exceed the total 840 square feet on this lot, even if you count both of them on this lot. And I assume that since it's one sign for each lot, that 1 sign would be counted for each lot, and certainly it is way below your total maximum square footage that would be allowed, 840. Each of these signs are 300, so that would allow another 540 square foot of frontage on each lot.
So if I'm to understand correctly, it would be within our ordinances to have a 90-foot interstate pole on each lot, but instead the proposal is for a single pole for 2 signs.
That's correct.
Okay.
And I've circulated a little drawing that kind of shows you the Starbucks sign and shows you the vacancy that's there for the other sign that would be applicable to the other property once he finds a tenant or purchaser, whichever he might do. I think that sums it up. If anyone has questions, I'd be glad to answer. Pretty straightforward.
On the paperwork, it's asking for 600 square feet of interstate signage. And I heard 400 and I heard 840.
Gotcha. So under your ordinance, the maximum you could have for the interstate sign on each lot would be 400. So you could have 400 on one, 400 on the other. In this case, what he's asking for is 2 signs of 300 square feet each,
Okay.
for a total of 600. Sorry, I didn't make that clear.
That's fine.
Yeah, sure. Mr. Kearney wants me to just make it clear that we don't know how much additional signage Starbucks will ask for. Again, what we assume this will be counted as if one of these signs is for each lot, So it'll take 300 square feet out of each lot's total, so that Starbucks would still have an additional 540 square feet available on their lot.
But they wouldn't be 90 feet tall.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah, they would be wall signage or maybe a free, they could even have another freestanding sign that's not considered an interstate. Those interstate signs are very specific to those very tall, visible from the interstate. And of course, we have certain regulations on just those interstate signs where they're only allowed within a 2,200-foot radius within the from the center of the interstate, and they fall under that criteria as well.
Sure, this would be a question for council or you, Manny, but would we have to specify in the motion language to if it's decided to do this, to restrict an additional interstate sign from being at some point in the future placed on tract to this development? Given the variance in this case to have both lots share one sign, could the owner still be in a position to place a second sign if they decided to on tract number 2?
So I think we should clarify with the applicant to see what the request is, because that's one thing I'm a little, I think that's what we need to consider in answering that is this an either or could it have the potential to have a double-headed sign on 102 Jane Street? The owner sells the property next door at 104. We've given a variance for 102, and now 104 wants the same 90-foot sign within the regulations. So I think that's the question. I think let's ask the applicant if you have some,
Mr. Carney is going to explain that. He and I have discussed that. He knows better than I do.
Yeah.
Mr. Vitt.
Yeah, and correct me if I say. What I'd like to see is, and we anticipated this, is that I don't know who's going onto the second lot, number 2. And my plan would be to share, since it was one lot divided into two, why I'm putting a double head, you only see one part. So if we could write it in a way, well, if Starbucks is the only sign less than 400 square feet on that first pylon, if my next tenant, who I don't know who it is, I wish I did, but I don't today, that if they decide, hey, I gotta have my own, then could you write it in such a way that, okay, then the first sign is stuck following the 400 square foot, and the first lot is 400 max, and the second lot only gets one interstate sign with 400 square foot. Is there a way of writing that?
I think Mr. Bills expressed that in his question. I think it's
Yeah.
either or in his question.
Yeah.
We either have 2 on this pole and none on the other lot, or we limit this pole to 1 and put 1 on the other lot.
Because I don't know the future. Wish I could, but I
Right.
don't. And I'm just anticipating having it's nicer to have one pole with the aesthetics than another pole if I can do that. Nobody wants another pole if we
Right.
don't have to. For the city, there's some, but it's fitting into the environment over there because there are multiple. Cracker Barrel has one, and Shell has one, and blah, blah, blah. So,
We were not asking for 3. Maybe that's the best way to say it.
Right,
I
yeah.
think your either or question, get it right on the table.
Okay.
so in my opinion, I think the way that the motion would be made would be to allow a variance from the sign ordinance for 102 Jane Street for a maximum of 600 square feet. And not which would account for, maybe we include both addresses. So a maximum of 600 square feet on one pole, which would serve as the interstate signage for 102 and 104. Or each lot would comply with the sign regulations as written. Jerry, do you have a does,
I think that's a proper motion to restrict 104
if a variance is given, that
Yeah.
it would be for the purposes of 102 and 104,
yes,
or that each lot would comply with the
104.
regulations as written. Okay. Okay.
Any further discussion?
I have one more question. So if it's either or, the sign that's proposed now, or at least the pole that's proposed now, at 102, at 104, they could have another 90-foot pole.
Not with the motion that we just discussed. That would, the variance would account for the both lots. Mhm. And from a building, well, and from a regulation perspective, one of the requirements is that a building permit, for these interstate signs, there are huge foundations that have to be engineered for these things. And, you know, in my opinion, that's it's something I've talked to Mr. Carney about. You know, they're gonna solve this, I think, before he puts up the sign for 600 square feet, because the foundation that would have to be engineered for a sign that's that much larger, you know, the foundations are designed specific for the size of those signs. And so we've discussed that, and I think that that's a decision, like I say, that's gonna probably happen fairly soon, or before the sign is installed. So we're not gonna have, you know, a place for a second sign and it just not ever go up, would be my thinking, is that you wouldn't install this without this other head, because you wouldn't want to overdo the foundation if you didn't have to. If you would come up here.
If you don't mind. Come on up.
I've been waiting to have the engineer design it until this hearing. So nothing's been designed. So it is very expensive to build these things, so I only want to design it for what I'm planning on building. And and he's asking me, the engineer, Pogue, who I plan on using, out of Lexington, and he's asking me what the size is, and I'm like, I'll let you know after tonight.
That's right.
Anything else?
All right. I know it's going to be a little bit of a wordy motion if somebody's ready to make one.
Give it a stab.
All right.
Okay, I am going to make a motion that we allow a variance for 102 and 104 Jane Street with the maximum of 600 square feet on one pole, or that each lot would comply with the interstate sign requirement.
And do we need to point towards the statute selection in that motion?
Yeah, and if I need to read those again, I can.
That'd be great.
Okay, yeah, so we can just do probably A, B, C, or D. So A is that the requested variance arises from special circumstances which do not generally apply to the land in this general vicinity. B is that such special circumstances are not the result of actions of the applicant, taken subsequent to the adoption of these regulations, which doesn't really apply in this
Right.
case. C, the strict application of the provisions would deprive the applicant of a reasonable use of land or would create an unnecessary hardship. Or D, reasons that the variance will not adversely affect the public health, safety, welfare, and will not alter the essential character of the general vicinity and will not cause a hazard or nuisance to the public.
D.
D. Okay.
All right, a motion has been made. Is there?
I thought you were gonna repeat it.
Oh, I can do that. I'll do my best here, although D was the one I did not write down.
I will.
I was thinking you all were going
chime
to go
in.
for C,
I'll
but,
chime in.
all right. So a motion has been made to, for a variance for 102 and 104 Jane Street for maximum of 600 square feet to serve on a single pole, or each lot, 102 and 104, would have to comply with the current sign regulations that we have. And the statute we would point towards is D, and somebody's going to have to help me here because I did not write that.
Yeah, that the variance will not adversely affect, I'm going to paraphrase,
Okay,
health, safety, welfare, and will not cause a hazard or nuisance to the public.
I'll second that motion.
all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. You're welcome. And I believe, you bet, yeah. No, I think it's a good choice. Yeah. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.